Okay, so ETFs are one of the most common and best ways to start growing your investment portfolio, and they're not that hard to understand either. I say this because I've built my own investment portfolio from zero to £100,000 in 8 years, and 95% of that has come from investing into just ETFs. But of course, just like anything else, not knowing some key details about ETFs can actually turn them from being a potentially good investment into a potentially bad one. So here's 9 things that you should know about them before you start investing. Okay, so what's an ETF? So an ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. And basically all they are is just a group of stocks all combined into one investment. So if we compare an ETF to individual stocks, so you could invest into an individual stock of Apple, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, you know the drill. When you're buying an individual stock of those companies, you're buying one share in that company alone. When you're investing into an ETF, you're actually buying potentially hundreds or maybe even thousands of companies all inside one investment. The main benefits of ETFs and what draws a lot of people towards them is number one, the obvious one, they are widely diversified straight from the start. And this is going to bring the second benefit, number two, which means they're generally going to be lower risk when we compare them to something like an individual stock. And then the third benefit of them is that they are generally considered a low cost product. So the fees that it costs to own an ETF is generally lower than other investment types. I'll go into these in more depth throughout this video, but this now go towards probably the main thing that you need to understand about any ETF before you start investing into it, and that is, what does that ETF cover? Okay, so there's so many different ETFs out there right now, and they've really gained in popularity over the last decade or so, and they cover so many different things. They can cover different indexes, they can also cover different regions, and you'll also get ETFs that will cover different sectors, like a tech ETF or maybe an AI ETF. Some common ones you may have heard about are ones like the S&P 500 ETF. This is an ETF that tracks the S&P 500 index, which is essentially the top 500 companies in America. You also have the FTSE 100 ETF, which does the same but in the UK, and the top 100 companies on the London Stock Exchange. And then you also have global ETFs like the FTSE All World ETF, which tracks the All World Index, which is basically a combination of developed and emerging markets all over the world. I like to use this website called Just ETF. It's completely free to do all of my research on ETFs that I'm potentially wanting to invest into. And for example, we can just type in, let's say, an S&P 500 one that I know, which is VUSA, and you can click on it and you can see everything you need to know about this ETF, including all of its holdings. So if I go ahead and click on the holdings tab, we can see that it's 94% exposed to the United States. We can see the split between the technology. We can also see things like the top 10 holdings of the companies inside it. So you can see all of the big players here like Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Tesla. You get the point. The next thing you need to be looking at is diversification. Now, a lot of people will say, well, isn't an ETF diversified from the start? And whilst I mostly agree with this, diversification when it comes to ETFs does come in many different forms, and there's a few things that you need to watch out for. For example, one common question that I get a lot is, should I invest 50% of my money into an S&P 500 ETF, and should I invest 50% of my money into an all-world ETF? Now, from the outlook, that looks like a really good diversified investment to make, because you'll get exposure to America and you'll get exposure to the global stock market. However, the one thing that some people don't understand is that with the all-world ETF, you are already getting 60% roughly exposure to the S&P 500 and America. So if you're investing into both, you're actually increasing your exposure to America because there's a lot of overlap. So when it does come to ETFs, you can't just go and buy a load of ETFs and just expect to be diversified. There is a chance that there could be some overlap there. I myself like to just keep things simple with just one ETF, which is a global one, so I'm just spread and diversified across the world. But I do know some people that go with maybe 5 or 6 different ETFs that are concentrated across different sectors and regions as well. The next thing you should consider with ETFs is definitely going to be the different types of fees and the expense ratios that come with them. And whilst for the most part ETFs are generally considered a low fee investment, there is some differences between the different types of ETFs and how much you would get charged in fees, and this could potentially cost a lot of money if you're picking one over a 10, 20 or maybe even a 30-year time span. To find out the different charges that an ETF will cost you, you can either go to the actual provider's website, or once again, you can just use just ETF. And what you can see here is going to be the TER, which stands for total expense ratio. And as you can see with this Vanguard S&P 500 one, it has a total expense ratio of 0.07% per annum. Now, of course, this is extremely low, especially when we compare this to any kind of actively managed fund. But when we compare it to other ETFs, there can be quite a big difference. For example, this one is 0.07%. If we take a look at VWRP, which is an all-world fund, we can see that there's about a 0.12% difference between the two fees. Once again, this is very marginal and it won't make that much difference over a 1-year period, but maybe a little bit of a difference if you're investing over a 10, 20, or maybe even 30-year period. The one thing I will say is don't go and pick your investment based on what the actual fee is. For example, don't go and pick an S&P 500 fund over an all-world fund just because the fee is cheaper. The main decision should always be what's inside the ETF. Another thing you should really consider when it comes to costs and fees, and this is actually outside of the ETF fee, is the actual platform fee that they're going to be charging you. So this is where you're actually going to be investing into your ETF. And if you're investing with a platform that charges you a fee every time you want to make an investment, then that low ETF fee pretty much goes out the window because you're going to be charged so much every time you want to invest. So you really want to be looking for a platform that actually has no fees. My recommendation is to check out apps like Trading 212 because they offer a completely free service where they don't charge you any platform fees when you buy any kind of individual stocks or ETFs on their site. If you did want to check them out, I do have a link in the description down below. And if you were to use my code FELLAS when you sign up, you would actually get a free fractional share worth up to £100 when you deposit your first £1. Now, moving on to dividends, some ETFs have dividend paying stocks inside them. And once they pay their dividends to the ETF will then forward those dividends onto you. And there's two main types of dividend paying ETFs that you should probably be aware of. And that is number one, distributing ETFs, and number two, accumulating ETFs. Now, you can see the difference normally in the name. It will have an abbreviation at the end. But basically, when it comes to distributing ETFs, what happens here is that when you are paid your dividend from that ETF, what happens with a distributing ETF is that is paid to your account, your investing account, as cash. You can then pretty much do whatever you want with it. You can take it out, you can reinvest it into that ETF, or you can go and buy some other stocks or something like that. It doesn't matter. Now, with accumulating ETFs, you'll still get your dividend paid to you, but instead of it being paid to you as cash, what will happen is that that dividend will automatically be reinvested to just buy more shares in that stock. Another thing that catches a lot of new investors off guard when it comes to investing into ETFs is the different types of currency and exchange rates. So for example, if you were to invest in an S&P 500 ETF that is based in the UK, what you're essentially having to do is convert your pounds into US dollars. And of course, with foreign currency exchanges, this is something that is changing on a day-to-day basis. So for example, if the pound weakens or strengthens against the dollar, this is going to have an effect on your ETF outside of just the ETF going up and down in price. Using the S&P 500 again as an example, I've actually seen some people look at the S&P 500 index chart, so the actual one that is getting tracked, and actually compare that to their S&P 500 UK-based ETF and wonder why there is such a difference in the returns there. And a lot of that, in fact, most of it is due to the fact that there's going to be currency fluctuations. You can find things such as currency hedged ETFs that can potentially reduce this a little bit, but these do usually come with higher fees. Now, one thing that doesn't get spoken about enough is the actual fund size and the providers that's providing it. So when it comes to the main providers, you have people like Vanguard, iShares, Invesco. All of these providers are making these ETFs to make money. They do that through the fees that they charge. We spoke about that earlier on. But depending on the fund size, and let's say a smaller ETF provider, or maybe even one of the large ones, create an ETF, and it doesn't seem to get picked up by that many people, and it doesn't have that many assets under management, they could potentially shut that ETF down in the future because it's not making them enough money. So it's really important to consider the fund size before you're making your investment. I want to quickly just touch on UCITS status as well. This is something that you might have noticed in the name of your ETF, especially if you're investing into ETFs based in Europe. And you might be wondering what this actually means. And basically all it means is undertakings for collective investments in transferable securities. It's a bit of a mouthful, but basically all it means is that that ETF is safe, regulated and transparent. I basically just look at it as a quality stamp for ETFs. I want to quickly touch on leverage ETFs as well, because I've seen some people make some mistakes with these. Basically, leverage ETFs, all their job is to do is to amplify your investments by using derivatives. This may sound good and may sound like you're actually going to be tripling your income, let's say, but you can also lose just as quickly as well. When you're picking leverage ETFs, you're basically just multiplying your risk when you don't really need to. I would never recommend these to be looking at if you're a beginner. But that's my breakdown on some of the key things I think you should definitely know before you think about investing into ETFs. If you actually want to see a breakdown of my last 8 years investing, on how I invested every single month, 95% of them into ETFs, check out this video. But otherwise, drop a like if you found it useful, and I will see you in the next one.